Hello viewers. So from today I have started a new series on my YouTube channel which are reviewing the books that I have recently read and that have created an impact on my thoughts, right? So I am actually very selective while reading books. So I do a lot of research. I take care that I read a lot of reviews of the book, what the book entails, what kind of storyline of the book has before making finally a decision on a book to read. Because most of the books nowadays are pretty huge. I mean, you would be spending like uh, 50 60 hours on a particular book to complete the entire series. So investing that amount of time, you need to take a rational decision whether it's right or not to invest that much of time to a particular series, right? So today's book again is something that am I consider myself lucky that I have been able to find this book, right? I mean, in a parallel world, it would it's quite possible that I haven't even heard of this book's name. So the book that I'm talking about is called The Remembrance of Earth's Past. So there are three core books and one affiliate book in the series. So the writer of this book is Cixin Liu. He's one of the most prolific hard sci-fi writers of China. That's one of the reasons why this book was found so late. The book has won multiple sci-fi awards like Hugo Awards and a few others, right? And my mind was completely blown by the time I had finished reading this book. So just like I said, the series title is Remembrance of the Earth's Past. It's also called the Three Body Problem. In China also the name is Three Body Problem series only. So this is the first book, right? So this is the Three Body Problem. The second book also I am having, let me just show you. So this is the second book of the series, The Dark Forest. Then you have the third one, which is a concluding one from the author, The Death's End, right? And then finally, this is a continuation by one of the fans of Cixin Liu, Bao Shu. So he started writing this up as a fan story continuation in various forums for the book. And the way he wrote it, finally, there was some discussion between Bao Shu and Cixin Liu, and Cixin Liu himself gave him an approval to put the same book under the trilogy, right? So this actually concludes, it also throws some more lights on a lot of topics which the book has just touched upon. I mean, it adds a lot of context. So that's why I'm considering this also as a part of the book. Now, there are lots of characters in this book, and one thing that you will find different between reading these kind of Eastern fiction and Westerns are and Western fictions. In Western fiction, you would see a lot of character build-up, and usually the lead characters would flow throughout the story. But here, what happens is you have some sort of character build-up. You will get to connect him to the story. You will know that this person is an integral part of the story. But yeah, that continuation or stretching of a character's role in the book is not something that you will find. So you will have to be ready for lead characters just getting lost or dying somewhere, and you are not able to find where this character went to, right? So here it is, the first book of the series. It's just the gateway to the entire universe that this book brings. So the book basically starts with a character called Ye Wenji, and the time that is shown is around 1950s, when the Cultural Revolution of China was taking place. So yeah, it also throws some light on how things were there in China even now, or even during the Cultural Revolution. So from a Western perspective, from anywhere outside China, we keep on thinking that China is a authoritarian regime. There would be no one who would shout against the government. If anyone calls up the government for anything, he would be brought to task. So it's not like that. So there are dissidents in China also, and inside China also there would be people who are against the government, just like any other country, right? So again, the fact I'm mentioning this is because a lot of the book's time is spent on showing how authoritarian the regime is in China, right? So it was the 1950s, the Cultural Revolution was going on. There were these red brigades from the communist parties and all. So these were all prevalent across all verticals of the society. Even in the universities, there were this faction of communists, ideological followers. Yeah, communism has its own goods and vices. So again, they would only know the goods of communism and all the vices they are ignoring, and they would want to iron fist the society into agreeing to what their ideologies are, right? So, and one of those ideologies was the giving up of Western science, Western thoughts about how the earth is to be taken care of. So that's why scientists were one of the most attacked Chinese groups because of their close linkages with Western science and everything going on around the West. Because you cannot progress in science until you know where all the dots are getting connected, where all the rest of the research is taking place, right? So Ye Wenji's father was a well-renowned physicist. So he was being questioned by these communist group regarding his affiliation, whether he's ready to give up science and all, and blah blah, whatever else happens. That professor is not willing to give up. I mean, he's a man of science, so he said that he will always go by where science is leading to. And surprisingly, his wife, which is Ye Wenji's mother, she is also a member of these communist factions, and she literally even ignores the fact that he is her husband, and she takes part with the communists and starts blaming her husband. So, and suddenly the turn of events takes place in such a way that the entire mob of communists would rush up around this professor, and he would get stabbed to death. Not exactly stabbed, stampeded to death, right? And that happens right in front of Ye Wenji. So she was again a PhD doctoral student at the same university where her father worked. She saw this thing happening. She again, since her father again got defamed as a Western thinking scientist, the entire family, that's what happens in China. If you are against the government, if something has been found out against you, then your entire family is put under a radar. So she is sent to a far-flung research institute where her scientific skills would be taken care of. I mean, they would be put to use, because in China everyone is put to use for something. Things are not wasted. So she is in this radar lab where she starts working. So that's how time passes. But then this discontentment against humanity that has been seeded in her brain continues. So, but then that doesn't mean she would keep on getting more and more aggressive. Over time, she also she also accepted what happened. It was a fate, and she accepted and moved on with her life. But then again, when she decided to move on, the second shocking thing happens in her life. So there is this visiting researcher at the institute where she was working, and this researcher was supposed to be working on some Western project where they were trying to study the effects of industrialization, etc., on climate change and all. And again, this was against the Chinese government's philosophy, because they want to grow, right? Environment is something that comes much later in the priority lineup. And because the Western world is following this so much, they took it upon themselves to call it as a Western, a tool of Western hegemony, and then just spread some propaganda amongst the people that, yeah, global warming is nothing, we have to take care of our own thing. And if anyone is trying to do research in these topics, he should be completely shunned off, right? So that's what she is made to believe. So she is made to believe that. But when she found this researcher, he was trying to write some letter to a top government official regarding the actual impact of whatever they were doing on the nature, right? And the book sometimes reaches from the peak levels of human thought to the bare minimum human, chindi test. That's a word that we have in Hindi called chindi, which is like the stupidest, silliest thing that people do to manipulate people around us. So he was writing a letter to a top government official, but his handwriting was not good and he was not writing it well. So where Ye Wenji offers help to him, because she found a connect between herself and a scholar, right? Because although she has tried to kill all her feelings about against the Chinese government, but then when she found someone talking these sort of things, she found a connect. So she offered to write the letter for him. And the way it happened is, a few days later, she got some guards coming up to her cabin and just directly blaming her that she has written the letter herself and she is plotting to do things that are against the government's thought process and that are against the common Chinese people. So, and she's literally taken up, dragged to a prison, the dungeon sort of place, and then put up there and left to herself. Like, so that's where again her belief in humanity was completely lost. So now that's what has been happening for quite some time. So the story just moves on. They show some more background knowledge about how things were back in China at that period. So after some time, some senior communist official would come. Again, they would not. That's one side of the story that they also show, that even though a dissident is not something that is liked in China, but they don't want to make these people go to waste. So, so that was sort of a low-scale concentration camp that was sort of going on. So she is again sent to a highly secret facility that is sending signals to outer space. It is somewhere similar to what SETI is doing, right? So they would send various sort of radio signals and hope that some alien civilizations would be able to catch. So that around 30-40 years has passed on, right? So she was working there. She again, just like I said, a lot of background story has already been built up why she has lost her faith in humanity, right? So there, once while she was working early in the morning, she gets this message where a foreign entity was sending a signal that if you are receiving this signal, don't respond. So that's what the message called up. Just think the kind of climax you are reaching. The book, the 4-part series is not even 10% complete, right? So the message says that if you are receiving this signal, don't respond. Now, and this comes only to Wei Wenji, right? And by that time, there is one more thing that Wei Wenji actually discovered. She was a good physicist, right? She was making her own discoveries. She knew that if instead of using directly the radio antennas, if you are using the sun as a reflector of the radio waves you are sending, your signal gets amplified by a large extent, and it can reach to even further depths of the universe, right? So that part she knew, right? So now when she receives this signal, right? There was some minor story before that. I think she sent a signal using the sun before also, but that was not good enough to help identify the location of Earth, right? And that signal was basically received by some pacifier from the other world, and he was actually someone who was trying to save humanity from an upcoming invasion. He didn't want his world to invade, right? So see, the complexities of human world are prevalent in the other forms of society also. So now when she received this, what she did was she directly replied that humanity has no hope, come and do whatever you want. So that's the kind of message that she sent back. There are some minor issues here and there where just to hide the fact that she has sent this message, she eventually even gets her fiancé killed. So that was the extent to which her hatred had cropped up for human society, right? So that's where it stops. So that was somewhere around the 1970s or 80s, I think. When you read, if I'm wrong about the dates a bit, just please forgive me, okay? I'm trying to recall everything. It's more than a month since I read the book, right? So now she sent this message, and she also got her fiancé killed, who would have got to know that this has been sent and all. And the story moves on, right? That is 50-60 years in the future. So 50-60 years in the future, what's happening is, so that is where the second part of the first book starts. So the top level scientists and all, the physicists who were doing groundbreaking research in physics were starting to commit suicide. So that is what the trend has been, and there we get introduced to the second lead character of the first book, which is Wang Miao. He's also called Xiao. Xiao basically means little in Chinese, right? So here he is a top level researcher. So he has discovered something uh, uh, I forgot the term. So it's basically an extremely thin fiber. It's a nanoscope level fiber, but then it's harder than the hardest element found on anywhere in the universe. So even a nanoscopic level, a thread of it can cut through the entire planet. So that's what the type of thing that was trying to get portrayed there, right? So there he is, this researcher, and he's also getting to hear news from across the world that physicists are dying. So of late, he also got to know about his muse, basically someone who he knew in his research days. He basically was in a one-sided love story with her, but then, I mean, just like any of the regular dudes in college who has a crush for someone, but then doesn't get to fulfill his crush, right? So that girl also commits suicide, and the suicide notes she left behind just says that physics is dead. That's why she's killing herself. Now that girl is also the daughter of Ye Wenji, right? So that's how things are connected. A lot of things are connected. Although even I could skip, or even if the writer could have skipped these tiny bits, but then when you find this connection, it just thinks the level of connect this writer has tried to keep up in the story, right? So he also dies, and he also receives some sort of. So what happens is, he used to like taking different sort of pictures and all, right? So then at a particular moment, what happens is he started taking some pics from an old camera that he was having, and he started noticing some small digits written in at some part of the picture. So he tried taking these pictures through various cameras. He drew his own hypothesis and trying to prove that this is some issue with the device and all. He used digital camera, he used his friend's camera, his wife's camera, and everyone's possible, right? But everywhere he was observing this time and these digits. And finally, after some more thoughts and all, he got to know that this is a countdown timer that has started. So, and then parallelly, he also got some invitation from some weird societies. He got to know about some weird societies. No, I'll skip this part. So yeah, he suddenly got an invitation from a police chief, whose name is Dashi. So this is one of the key characters, hilarious character in this story. So he is shown as a rude, rough and tough, no nonsense policeman who is able to analyze and come up with practical solutions within a very short time, when others will just keep on thinking about humanity and morality, right? So he knocks on the door and gets him introduced to this high-level government organization who are observing the activities of an organization called ETS, which is Earth ETO, Earth Trisolaris Organization, I think. Yep. So again, the members of these societies were the ones who were also committing suicide, right? So they wanted him to get involved in this organization and try to spy for the government what was actually happening. And when he heard it, he straight away said no. So he needed some other reason to work. So that's these are the nitty-gritties of human thought process that comes up, right? When you know that practically you can do a lot of help by taking part in this organization and try to get some more knowledge, but he will not do because the government is trying to enforce this. Later on, through some other things, this camera thing was also going on, and finally he got introduced to this society, right? And in that society, the first thing he was tasked to do was to play a virtual game, right? So it was a augmented reality game. He would just put on glasses and he would then walk through different scenarios. So it would show some times of around of Egypt. It will show times of various times of mass killings of human society had taken place. So those were the kind of times the game would play, and then he would got to know that at the end of each game that there is nothing that can be done to prevent this destruction. And towards the end of the game, it was shown that the entire planet is facing something similar, because there were 3 suns in that planetary system, These again are scientifically connected. So these are basically Alpha Centauri, Beta Centauri, and Proxima Centauri, right? So the planet is shown to be in that solar system. So there are 3 suns, and it's a scientific fact. I mean, you can do your own research on this topic. So any 3-body system is extremely unpredictable, and it can never be stable, right? So that planet is in that Alpha Centauri cluster, around 4 light years from Earth, and the conditions there was extremely violent and unpredictable. I mean, after every certain amount of time, and even that amount of time can also not be certain because of the unpredictability of the 3-body system. So the planet would always go through this cycle of destruction, right? So that's what is shown to the users of this group, and they were made to sympathize that yeah, a planet exists which is facing mass extinction. Then they want to find a separate home for them where they can live. Now, as fellows of the universe, Earth should be ready to take these people up, right? So that's what the context of the book was. So now these people, they would basically want to help these outer beings to reach Earth and then start living here. Now there are multiple options. In this organization also there were multiple things that were getting considered. So again, there's one more nitty-gritty of the story that I'll come to. There are literally like thousands of these kind of things in the story. So now there are like the extremists of the organization. Now it's an external being. These are not something that we have ever known, right? These kind of beings are coming to Earth. They can coexist with us. They can, if they are technologically far superior, they can dominate us. They can even cause mass extinction of humanity and the other organisms on Earth, right? All these options are available. So there are some folks of the organization who belong to the moderate level, then there were the extremists and all. And I mean, they actually took it up as a, I mean, it also got converted as a faith also. Some people started believing in these creatures as gods and all, who would be coming to Earth to give us salvation and all. So all sorts of weird theories are going on, and everything made sense. So that's the good part of the book. Everything made sense, right? So that's how the story progressed and all. These people are sympathetic, and regular exchanges of communication were also going on and all. So there was a huge, so this organization was again declared as terrorist by the world government. So there is this body similar to UN which is declared as an terrorist organization. And they were basically sending messages to these planet, to the other planet, which is by this time is named Trisolaris, right? So they were signaling everything that's happening to us. Now there is one scientific development that had been taking place over the past. So just like I said, that scientists were committing suicide, so no serious progress in science was happening, right? Even Wang Miao, who had discovered this dangerous thing, I mean, I'll get to its use in just a minute. So he was also being tried to be made as sympathetic towards the Trisolarans as possible, right? So they start following this organization for more messages on what is going on, right? So they found that this organization was basically operating from a large ship where their headquarters were, and they were using this ship to transmit messages to and from Earth, right? So, and anything, even if the police or the governments were able to trace anything that linked to this organization, they would just kill, or the person would just commit suicide. So they had to get information from them without giving this organization a chance to respond, because they would destroy every piece of information, right? So there comes the discovery of Wang Miao. So they found out this ship, and this would make for such a good Hollywood scene, just imagine. So, and this ship was supposed to pass through the Panama Canal. The Panama Canal is somewhere like 100 kilometers or so wide. At its thinnest point, what they did was they would make a barrier with threads of this material, right? The theory was it will just slice through the ship, killing everyone on board, all the disks and drives would be cut with such precision that after the Earth would be able to get these storage materials, they would be able to just piece back the units together and get the data back. So that was the plan, and this actually happened. So the entire ship was sliced like a cake, right? And they got all the materials and all. So from the materials and all, they got to know that this organization has been communicating repeatedly with the Trisolarans on what all to do, how all to reach Earth. So they have already started their journey from Trisolaris to Earth, right? So that's the crux of it. The process has already started. It's a 400 years journey from there to Earth. It's a light takes just 4 years to reach from there to Earth. So that also shows that they are at a very superior technological level, but they have not reached light speeds, right? So they would take 400 years. And we also got to know that they have developed a new technology called sophons. So sophon is basically a supercomputer that has been created in a higher dimension. It has been compressed to the quantum realm. So it's basically, I think it's a proton or something on which the entire supercomputer has been compressed to. So again, since it's in the quantum realm, again, if someone is to visualize while reading the story the kind of development that went through creating this sophon, you will get wild imaginations, right? So that's the level of details the book gets into. You will see how they tried in for 2 dimension, 3 dimension, 4 dimension before coming to this quantum realm to get the sophon. And because it's in the quantum realm, they again use one more theory, which is quantum entanglement. So again, I'll not go into the details because neither do I know, or whatever I'll try to explain might come as a layman's explanation. So there will be 2 particles, right? 2 quantum particles, which are always in an entangled phase. So they would be able to know the existence of the others wherever they are in the universe, right? So that basically gives a way to know things before light speed. I mean, be it anywhere where in the universe, you would be able to go and get instantaneous information about what's happening there, right? So this is the level of technology that the Trisolarans discovered, right? So, and humanity just discovered that they have this quantum particle which can be present anywhere across the world and is able to transmit any message instantaneously to the Trisolarans. Just think about the impact of this knowledge on the human society. Nothing you do is a secret, nothing you do can be hidden, nothing you do will be something that there is no strategy basically that you can make that will not be known to Trisolarans. Just let this thing sink in for some time, right? And that also explains some of the other things that were happening in the world. So because this is a quantum realm particle, it was literally impacting the experiments that were going on in our particle accelerators like CERN or the Large Hadron Collider. So the particle will literally go inside the particle accelerator. It will interact with the protons and the electrons, the quarks and all, whatever was coming out of a particular interaction, and the results were basically untrustworthy. So humanity came to know that any research they do is not going to, I mean, they cannot verify whether it's correct or not. So this part was again explained in a separate example that they had given somewhere in the mid of the book to Wang Miao, basically by showing different examples like a snooker ball hitting another snooker ball. So if you are repeating everything, I mean the experiment is repeated under the same set of conditions, the ball that is being hit will follow the same trajectory if you are able to meet everything. But that is what's not happening in a particle accelerator because of the interaction of sophon, right? So yeah, and as soon as they got to know that this being is present everywhere, they just sent one message. I don't think it was a message. I think it was just a realization that Trisolarans got to know that humanity have come to know, and they just sent one message written bugs. So that was the only word that came as a message from the Trisolarans through the Sophon, Bugs. Now, I'll just go a little bit into the story from here. So bugs, the way humans interpreted was that humans are being considered as bugs by this civilization. I have read the entire series, so I'll tell this also has an significance, and I'll connect this dot in my next video. So yeah, that's the first part of the book. So at Bugs is where the story ends, and at Bugs is where people start to realize what they are in front of this universe. So that's just the starting point of the grand scale of the book, right? It's not even, I mentioned 10% some time back, right? So this is where 10% of the entire series has got completed. So the next part of the book is the dark forest, and things get even weirder there. I'll put up the next video if you found this interesting. And even if you have not found this interesting, I will make a video of the entire series. Don't worry. Because this is something, the message needs to be delivered. Right? You have to read the book. So, see you.